we now know why Black Myth Wukong doesn't have an Xbox version, and I just wanted to say I really, really hate IGN for the title that they put on this particular article about how Black Myth Wukong devs bemoan lack of Xbox version, because it seems like they're complaining about it, but effectively there's a way better way to have worded this. So I'm going to be using the Forbes article, which I think lament might be a better word to use, because it's unfortunate that more people aren't able to play Black Myth Wukong on more pieces of hardware. Sure, we've got PC, we've got PlayStation, but it's currently being missed out on Xbox. And what people have been speculating is that for some reason there's a PlayStation exclusivity, but that isn't it. In fact, the issue is actually the Xbox Series S. So, the long strange saga of why Black Myth Wukong is not on Xbox now 4 months after its release continue with its update this week, where the actual developer, Game Science, are at odds with Microsoft's actual device. So this is from a Weibo message from Black Myth Wukong director Feng Ji, lamenting that the Xbox Series X limited shared memory was impossible to get the game optimized without several years of optimization experience. And then that's healthy. So it's worth pointing out that like the guys who made Black Myth Wukong are actually mobile developers who have worked on mobile titles. This is their first foray into the actual sort of console PC gaming space, and to make something as high caliber as Black Myth Wukong is great to see. You know, them kind of going out of their comfort zone and actually making an incredibly fun and exceptionally good looking game, all of its qualities put together to be good enough to be considered for Game of the Year at this year's The Game Awards, or rather last year's, I suppose, because it's 2025 now. But pretty much the fact that Xbox Series S's limited memory is not enough to be able to satisfy the needs of what the developers were after in order to make the game run as smoothly with lack of loading as much as possible, because that's kind of where all of that RAM kind of comes from. And I feel like using the word RAM is also very conducive, because shared memory is something a tad bit more specific, but I'm not a developer, so I can't really speak to that extent, but I can at least tell you it is very much different from how our computers work in terms of how the architecture has been set up on the Series S. And because of that, it's probably also fair to assume that because, Xbox are wanting everything to be parity across both Series S and Series X, that they want all games to run exactly the same way. Maybe not necessarily run exactly the same way, but more so have the exact same series of functions. But the thing is that it's going to be clear as day. If the game were to come out on Xbox, that would run poorly on the Series S, but run well on the Series X. And so that would then show very much a divide. And it's also worth considering the numbers that Xbox has sold significantly more Series S consoles than they have Series X. Almost like a 30-70 split. 30 for the X and 70 for the S. I think it was something to that extent. I'm pretty sure it's actually more, and I'm being a little bit more cautious with my actual guesses, but that's kind of what's happening here. So their actual messaging goes like this. We are currently optimizing the Xbox Series S and X version to meet our quality standards, Game Science said, so it won't release simultaneously with the other platforms. We apologize for the delay and aim to minimize the wait for Xbox users. We will announce the release date as soon as it meets our quality standards. That could have ended there, which may be back when we are now. But I was contacted by a source, so this is Paul Tassi at Forbes here, with very close knowledge of the situation, which was later corroborated by IGN and Windows Central, that this was not a technical issue with the Xbox hardware, and it was due to an exclusivity deal. Others like Jeff Grubb disputed that this was the case and no deal was in place. So this whole thing that happened here was something that happened ages ago, uh, earlier on, I want to say, but pretty much like sort of last year when the game launched maybe not long after, I want to say. But yeah, so at least if nothing else, because Game Science has not said anything about this, and when it came to the exclusivity aspect, people were pointing the finger at Sony. But the thing is that Sony wasn't saying anything about it, so we had no actual, at least to any extent, official information that was, talked about from the people who actually made Black Myth Wukong, and now we actually have some semblance of a statement and information from Game Science themselves directly, and this is the information that we have, albeit that it's from the director, the game director. So I feel like that's kind of as credible as information we're actually going to get about the situation. But I am curious to hear what everyone else kind of, has to say about this. So let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of the situation, what you thought of, the exclusivity deal stuff, but also the technical aspects surrounding the Xbox Series S and X, and especially when, Xbox really wants their games to actually work with the same functions and features across both platforms, especially when they've broken that rule at least a couple of times before, specifically looking at games like Baldur's Gate 3, for example. Because Baldur's Gate 3, on Series S, you cannot play split screen on that console. But on the X, you can. So they had to break their own rules to allow a game onto that platform in that way. So it's just kind of interesting to see how things are happening, but also how having a lower powered element or entry point of your platform is actually hurting your technical aspirations later on down the line in the generation. So it's just interesting to see that kind of happen. Initially, it seemed like a good idea to be like, oh, if you don't want to spend as much money, you can just spend less money and get a lower power product. But if you want to pay more money, you can get the higher end. But if the split is like 70-30, and I'm pretty sure it's actually bigger than that, and I'm being a little bit more conservative with the numbers, that, things aren't working out particularly well for them on the Xbox side. That being said, however, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. And with all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.